Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Ditch Decade Diets podcast. I am your host, Lorna, certified food freedom coach and founder of the Ditch Decade Diets Academy. I've spent 10 years in an unhealthy relationship with food, binge eating, over-exercising, and feeling insecure in my body. This podcast is all about helping you get to the root of your food struggles and teaching you how to rewire your brain so you can end binge eating. If you're ready to improve your relationship with food and cultivate more self-love towards yourself and your health, this is the podcast for you. So let's get to it and jump right in. Welcome you guys to another episode of the Ditch Decade Diets podcast. Today, I want to walk you through a very common scenario of how a binge can start. So I'm not saying this is what binge eating is. I'm not saying like this is binge eating. I want to make it very clear of this is how typically a lot of binges start. Now, of course, there could be nuances to this and not every single binge will happen like this, but if you're anything like me and you've had a restriction background where you spent a lot of your, years like dieting and restricting yourself, you probably are going to really relate to this episode because for me, a lot of my binges stemmed from heavy restriction. You can't eat this. You're not allowed to eat that. And so much deprivation, like for the majority of my life, like I was always on some type of diet. And, I never really did like Atkins or Weight Watchers, but it was always like these rules. Like I didn't even need to be on a diet, but it was just all of these rules of like, no, that's a bad food, so you can't eat that, or you should be eating this. Like there was always so many rules. And a lot of the times when people are on these crazy restrictive diets, they inevitably start binging because nobody can handle the deprivation. So again, this is a common scenario I'm going to walk you through of how a binge can start and how you can actually prevent your next binge. So let's say it's a Saturday night, because it's Saturday night as I'm recording this. Saturday night and you are craving something sweet. You remember that there is chocolate in your cupboards and you're like, that sounds really good. Like I'm actually really craving some chocolate right now. And then your diet culture mind is like, well, you probably shouldn't eat that. You don't really need that, do you? Like you should probably just skip it. Like you don't need the chocolate. You're going to be fine. Like, it's probably better for you if you just go for the apple instead. Like you really don't need the chocolate. Like just eat healthy. You got to do well and just opt for the apple instead. So you choose a healthier alternative. You end up having the apple and you can absolutely love fruit. Like you can literally love apples. For me, I love Fuji apples or Gala apples. Like they're just delicious and crunchy and I love them, right? And you probably, enjoy this healthier alternative as well too, but you eat the apple, even though you really want chocolate, and then you end up not satisfied because it wasn't what you actually wanted. You can love the apple, but you cannot tell me that an apple is the same as a chocolate. Right? They're not the same, right? So even for me, like in the past, if I wanted a chocolate, I would literally try these healthier alternatives because that's what like diet culture tells you, right? Like, oh, just have some fruit and it's going to satisfy your sweet tooth. Hello. If I'm wanting chocolate, I'm wanting chocolate, okay? I love my apples. I love my blueberries. I love my mangoes, my frozen mangoes. Frozen mangoes are so freaking good. I love fruit. But if I'm craving chocolate, I don't want fruit. As much as I love fruit, I don't want the fruit. So you have this healthier alternative. You have the apple because you're trying to do well, even though you really want the chocolate, and you're not satisfied. And now your mind continues to think about the chocolate that you really want. Like you're literally like fantasizing about how good it's going to taste, like it's in the cupboard, like, you remember like the last time you ate it, it was so good. And you're going back and forth in your mind, like, should I give in or should I not? And what ends up happening is you try to stay strong and not eat the chocolate because, diet culture says you got to rely on willpower and you got to rely on motivation. And you got to say no to your cravings. But you literally feel it in your body where you're getting impulsive. It's not just like a mind thing where all you're thinking about is the chocolate. Like, you feel your body literally starting to get impulsive. Maybe you start getting anxious, right? You feel that urge, those uncomfortable sensations in your body. So that craving that you had, it starts to intensify. And the craving intensifies the longer you push it off and the longer you dismiss it. And it's hilarious because people think that they're doing themselves a service of like, oh, look at me, I'm such a badass. Like, I was able to just like drink water instead of, having the cookie, or I was able to have an apple instead of the chocolate, as if like you won a trophy, as if like that's a good thing. Like, that's not a good thing because your craving literally intensifies. You think like, look at me go. I said no to my craving. And then you're going to end up binging the next day or even that same evening. So now this craving becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And maybe you even try another healthier alternative because you're like, I can't have the chocolate. So I don't know, maybe you have some like yogurt. I don't know, whatever it is. Like for me, if I was like, let's say craving chocolate, I would probably try like fruit. And then I remember like, some yogurt with like honey or like whatever it was, right? Like you try a healthier alternative. You try something else to try to, satisfy your craving. You want the craving to go away. So you're like, I'm just going to try this other thing. But again, because you're not allowing yourself to eat the chocolate, this craving now becomes a very, very, very strong urge. And now you have no choice but to give in and to eat the chocolate. And it's not that you're even full from, let's say, the apple or the yogurt or whatever you ended up having, but now it's like you're kind of feeling like a failure because like not only do you not have any control with the chocolate in the cupboards now, and you're in a full-blown binge because that craving got so strong where you're so impulsive and you're having this urge, but you're like, what the heck? Like I literally just had, the apple and I had this, and like I feel like I just like wasted so many calories because like I should have just freaking had the chocolate. And I remember telling myself that, like whatever it was, if it was chocolate or whatever it was, I'm like, I didn't even want those other things. Like this is why people who have a normal balanced relationship with food can actually like be at a healthy weight, because they're not trying 9 million other things before just eating what they actually want, and they could have the chocolate and freaking move on. So if you would have just had the chocolate, like literally the moment you had that thought in your mind of I want something sweet, I'm craving chocolate, and if you would have just honored your body, not feared the craving, you would literally prevent yourself from binging on the entire bar later that night, and you wouldn't have eaten those other foods that actually weren't satisfying for you. Like this is so important, you guys. Like you cannot fear your cravings. You need to start honoring them if you want to have less urges and eventually be able to stop your binging altogether. Urges do not come out of nowhere. It's not like, oh, I don't even like what? Why is this urge here? Like they don't pop out of nowhere. If you're wanting chocolate, like, and you don't honor the craving for chocolate, the craving's not going to go away. You can't say goodbye to it. You're going to say hello to it because it's going to be so freaking strong that literally you can't even ignore it. It's like somebody's like tapping you on the shoulder, like, hello, 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 hello. I'm still craving it. Like you didn't give in yet. Like I'm going to keep bugging you until you give in. So allow yourself to eat the chocolate when you're craving it, and actually remind yourself that this is such an important step that you need to take to reduce impulsivity and stop your binges. Instead of seeing it like, oh, I'm such a failure, like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, see it as like, no, I'm a freaking badass. And part of the healing journey is actually allowing myself to eat the foods that have been once off limits, or eat the foods that I'm craving if I want to be less impulsive. Stop fearing your cravings, because that's exactly the reason why you end up binging. So again, there's so many different scenarios of how a binge can start. But honestly, for me, it was always like I was craving something, and then I was like trying to not have it because I wanted to do good. And then I would try all these other like foods, to try to like fill that satisfaction. But it's never going to fill your satisfaction, because you want what you want. That's like a kid, right? They want, I don't know, they want a Barbie doll. I don't know. And you're like, oh, but here's a stuffed animal. And the kid might like the stuffed animal. They're like, oh, it's a cute little bear, but I want the freaking Barbie doll. Like, you can't give your child, well, maybe you can, but you guys understand. It's like, if your kid wants the Barbie doll and you're like, oh, just play with this bear, your kid's like, no, I want the Barbie doll. Like, the bear's cute, it's cuddly, but I want the Barbie doll. You cannot tell me that a Barbie doll is the exact same as a bear, right? You guys get the point. So this is how a lot of my binges start. This is how a lot of my clients' binges start, especially, like I said, if you have a history or you're currently in a restriction phase, you're going to do everything that you can to not eat the chocolate, to not eat the sweets, because you want to prevent binging. And this is what a lot of people tell me. But Lorna, as soon as I allow myself to have chocolate, I can't stop. Well, that's a whole other conversation, but you still have urges. You haven't made peace around this food, right? But the start is you got to allow yourself to have it, because the thing is, if you actually allow yourself to have chocolate and you remind yourself that you're not doing anything wrong, it's like you're gonna like program into your brain, like, I don't need to have all or nothing mentality. I actually don't need the entire bar because I'm not doing anything wrong. That's it, you guys. Like, the moment that you feel like you're going against the grain and you're falling off track, is like, well, since I'm off track, I'm just going to keep going for the rest of the day, and tomorrow's going to be better, So allow yourself to eat the chocolate when you're craving it. Remind yourself this is an important step that I need to take if I want to reduce impulsivity, if I want to have less urges, and if I altogether want to be able to stop my binge eating. So hopefully this was so helpful for you guys. And as always, if you guys are loving this podcast and you're loving these episodes, if you have not yet left a rating and a review, it literally just takes a few seconds, and it really helps me get my message across to more people who need to hear this life-changing information. So thank you guys so much for being here. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.